Welcome to our show, Feel Good Food,
where we make snacks, treats, and meals
that taste good, but also make you feel good.
I'm Max.
I'm Lydia.
And today we are making a crispy chicken and green broth with poached turnips.
It's a really bright broth. We add a little jalapeno pepper so it has a bit of a kick, and then all the herbs, dill, cilantro, parsley.
The crispy skin on the chicken with the broth, and then the poached turnips are really nice. There's a little bite to them. And it's kind of the perfect winter or summer dish.
We've been testing all our recipes on our families. Your parents were really happy with it.
Yeah.
So you guys will be too. Let's get started on the chicken. So pretty key to this recipe is you get both the comfort and the warmth of a soup and a broth, but then also the crispiness of a chicken. That combination of textures, and like obviously crispy chicken skin is salty and just so delicious, is what makes this dish so nice.
The way I'm gonna break down this chicken, first, it's really important to always check your chicken to make sure there's not a neck or any giblets or anything in there. Instead of spatchcocking, you're gonna take both sides of the breast and the legs off of the middle bone. So you'll have two sides of the chicken fully off the middle carcass.
He's gonna butcher half of this chicken, and then I'm gonna go in and do the other half. And Max will coach me through it a little bit. Hopefully that will help you guys watching him kind of guide me through it.
Yeah, so we're just gonna take off that whole side of the breast here, and you can just work your knife down it, making sure you're pressing against that middle bone, but also kind of carving away. And you're just gonna keep working your way down. You'll find that the first joint here is this wing joint, and you can come in between there.
One thing I was taught in culinary school that's really helped me when it comes to butchery, but specifically chicken butchery, is number one rule, your knife should always be gliding along the bone. And the second rule is you should never be forcing your knife through something, unless you're spatchcocking, in which case you do have to, I think, break the spine. But for this type of breakdown, every cut through the chicken should be pretty easy. So Max cut here, that was through cartilage, it wasn't through bone. Obviously you'll know if you're cutting in the wrong spot. If you're getting a lot of resistance, pause, navigate where you are, and adjust a little bit, because sometimes it's just like the smallest adjustment and then you're in the right spot.
Yeah, and you can always pop the joints, and that really opens up that space in between the two bones, and you can find your way with your knife through there. So you can see I took off this whole side already. There's really not much meat left on this side of the carcass here. And on this side we have our breast and our thigh and our wing here. We're gonna cut off the wing, and we're gonna take out all the bones in the leg. All right, so I'm gonna pass off the knife to Lydia, and she's gonna break down her side now.
This is my moment. Okay, I feel like I'm most comfortable with the top of the chicken pointed towards me.
Yeah, whatever suits you.
So here's the top of the breastbone, and I know your advice is
go down with the knife, and then once you make that first decision downwards, then you follow and always point your knife basically away from you or in the direction opposite of the knife in your hand, if that makes sense. And you're gonna just follow that middle rib cage and just let the knife kind of glide against that, and you're gonna pick up all that meat. And eventually you'll find your way down to that thigh area when that breast disconnects.
So I've approached my first joint, and I'm gonna slice through it, and it's so easy to get through. Like I didn't have any resistance there getting through that joint, and now I'm ready to venture on. Okay, but this is where I get a little confused because...
Okay, so one of the ways you can do it is kind of the meat will naturally pull off the carcass, so you can kind of hold that breast and not hang it, but yeah, hold it a little bit in the air and follow your knife down, and it'll find that crevice between the bone and the meat, and you'll just keep cutting away there. And eventually you'll end up onto the back side of the chicken, and you'll find your thigh bone. You can pop that out now before you keep going.
Oh yeah.
So
there it is.
You see it, it's right there.
Yep.
So that's like your contact point of where you want your knife to end up.
Right.
So I would start from here still.
Okay.
And see how you kind of broke through these ribs here?
Yep.
You're gonna wanna carve those away first. There you go. So you're gonna keep just going through there, going through that, that fleshy area and avoiding the bone.
Yeah.
And the thing with chicken or fish or any protein really, if you cut too much and you have some bones on there, you can always clean that out later. But you're doing a great job, Lydia.
Thank you. I'm actually proud of this one. This is a decent Ayo. Okay, and then
yeah, that's a
pretty
beautiful
much
half
just
chicken.
as good as yours.
Yeah, so now we're gonna take this carcass, you can put it on this tray.
We did a pretty good job. you know, a little bit of meat, but that's okay because we're gonna make a stock out of this, so it will only make the stock more flavorful.
And now we're gonna take out the bones and cut off the wings from the chicken.
And that's one of my favorite parts about cooking this recipe. The whole carcass goes in the stock. Like, it feels like nothing goes to waste.
So with this part, you're just gonna come under, as you can see here, the joint is still connected here. This just came out of the thigh bone, and then we're going down towards the leg. And you're really just cutting around it and making slight incisions, following that bone. And you're gonna hit this pivot point here. You can see it still moves. And you're gonna cut around it. And once you've cut enough away, you can slide your knife under that last bone here, cut away towards you, and it should just lift right on out. And then you can hold it down with your knife, either the sharp side down or up, and pull towards you, and then just slice that last bit off, and there you go.
When we cook the chicken, it will cook so much faster than it otherwise would if we left the bones in.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're putting in the work now to save time later. Say a full chicken takes anywhere from 35 minutes to 50 minutes to cook, whereas this chicken will take 20 minutes or less to cook without any bones in it, the whole thing. And to me, that's just a more enjoyable eating experience, and you get the benefit of it cooking faster, and I feel like your meat just tenderizes a little better also.
Absolutely. Like, I have always been a dark meat girly. When we cook it this way, I find that the white meat and the dark meat is equally tender.
Now that this is all deboned, I'm gonna transfer it to a sheet tray so we can salt it, and then we're gonna roast these bones to get the stock going.
I feel like having homemade chicken broth ready in your fridge is one of the true treats you can give to yourself. It literally is self-care, so.
So we're just gonna roast these for about 10 to 15 minutes till they're fully cooked and get a little color at about 375 or 400. We interrupt this episode of Feel Good Food to bring you a message from our sponsor, Boursin cheese.
I have been a huge fan of Boursin ever since I was a little kid. It is the key ingredient to my favorite 4-ingredient sandwich recipe, which is Boursin cheese, strawberry jam, turkey slices, and bread. That's it. It is so simple and so delicious. You have to try it at home.
Boursin has been our go-to cheese for its creamy texture and rich flavor.
And we are always looking for ways to step up our cooking game, especially around the holidays. We're gonna be entertaining. Boursin is the perfect addition to any holiday recipe, whether it be a festive cheese board or a rich and creamy mac and cheese.
Make something extraordinary with Boursin cheese.
You can find our favorite, the garlic and fine herb flavor, plus many more at your local grocer or at boursin.com.
So we're gonna salt this chicken now.
Really the point of this salt is to draw out the moisture so we do get that really crispy skin.
You just kind of want to get a coating on there just enough so that every little piece of skin has salt on it. It looks like a lot of salt, but a lot of it will come off. We're gonna salt this chicken on this side a bit lighter because this side is not gonna dab off as much as the skin will. So I'm just gonna turn it back over to the skin side so that moisture has a chance to lift up rather than seep downwards. And we're just gonna set that aside, and it's fine to let it sit out for 30 minutes to an hour before you cook. We're gonna let it come to temperature and all that moisture will come out of the skin.
Max is gonna turn the stove on. He's gonna drizzle a little oil. That pot's gonna get a little hot, and then we're gonna start putting in the vegetables for the stock.
Yeah, we're just looking to get some color on some of the onions and the garlic because that'll give it a little bit more flavor and a little bit more toastiness.
And the great thing about stock is it's super simple. You don't have to peel any garlic. You don't have to take off the skin at all. I just cut this in half, and I'm gonna put the whole thing in.
Well,
Yeah.
you want big chunks for the stock. You want to be able to grab it easily out of the stock when you're filtering it. And it's easier than if they're whole. Also really important when you're making stocks is to make sure that there's no sand or grit on your celery or your carrots because that will be harder to filter out. So now this is going, we're just gonna let this rock for a little bit. The bone should be done in just a second, and then we're gonna get that all in there and we'll top it off with some water.
And the stock will be simmering throughout the rest of this cooking process. And by the end, when we're ready, the stock will be really rich with flavor. So the bones are ready. We're gonna pull those out of the oven.
And you'll get some pooled juices down here. That's some nice chicken fat that rendered down, and you definitely want to save all of that. At first, you're gonna want to use some tongs, and since the chicken will be hot, to grab that chicken off and just piece by piece place this into the stock. You're gonna want to fill up this pan with some water so you can kind of deglaze and get all that goodness off the pan, and then dump it right in.
Ooh,
It's gonna be super hot at
snap,
first.
crackle, pop.
So now that I have my water in a bowl here, I'm just gonna fill the stock up. And obviously everyone has a different size pot, but I would recommend with one chicken using between 2 to 4 quarts of water, or you can fill it up just about full, and then over the course of the hour it will reduce. So you wanna bring this up to a boil over high heat, and then you can turn it down to a low simmer for the rest of the time.
Now we're gonna prep the turnips. So yes, this recipe contains turnips, which we think is kind of cool of us.
Yeah, I love turnips. I feel like they're underappreciated, but they have a lot of good flavor. You can eat them raw.
You know how cauliflower had a renaissance and like had its moment? I think turnips, this is my trend forecasting, turnips could be next. Okay, so the first thing you wanna do with your turnip is cut off this little bottom section. I think it's pretty amazing that this was created by nature. It's like the most beautiful purple to white ombre. We're gonna peel the turnip.
One of the best ways to peel is top to bottom, and that helps just get the whole thing in one swoop. Like you can see here, you're getting a full peel. Whereas if you were peeling around or across, you kind of end up with these like weird zigzag patterns, and this way you end up with like a perfect peel all the way around.
So we cut it in half, and then from here, another half. And we're really looking for slices that aren't super thin, but aren't super thick either.
Yeah, if they're too thin, you're not gonna be able to remain that bite when you cook them. So it's definitely good to have a little thickness there.
I love cooking with veggies that aren't as typical in my diet, and I feel like I'm trying to eat more turnips, but this recipe really has upped my turnip intake. We're gonna put these turnips into a bowl, and we're gonna set them aside. We will actually be poaching them in the chicken broth when it's ready, and it looks like it's starting to boil.
Yeah,
Max.
so we're gonna, now that this is boiling, we can bring it back down to a low simmer. And you basically wanna cook this on a low simmer for the remainder of the recipe until everything is done.
Now we'll get started on the green. It's like a sauce slash paste. We are using the holy trinity of herbs: dill, flat leaf parsley, cilantro. If you are using cilantro, which you should for this recipe, you could actually use the cilantro stems. There's a lot of flavor in cilantro stems, but for the other two herbs, you are going to want to pick the leaves off the stems. We'll also be using lemon juice and a jalapeno pepper. This is an enormous one. I even think half with the seeds will pack a lot of heat. If you're not into spice, you can either cut out the seeds because that's where a lot of the heat is, or just skip this and not have that spice at all. Then when we put it in the Cuisinart, we're gonna loosen it with a little bit of olive oil and some water as needed. You really want this to kind of just be the herbs. We're gonna season the broth. The chicken will have a lot of salt, and you just don't wanna put salt in this as well and then risk that the whole dish might be too salty.
Yeah, it's easier to season at the end or just with the stock and not the broth, for sure. So we're just gonna add some oil and the lemon juice and we'll get this blending.
Wow.
This is really looking like the perfect consistency. It's really blended and blitzed, and it's not too wet, it's not really soggy. It's really gonna add a lot of volume and flavor to this stock. It's time for the chicken.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our beautiful cast iron pan, we have our chicken. Obviously, we intentionally oversalted the chicken here to draw out as much moisture as possible. Some of the salt is gonna be great flavor and seasoning, but not all of it, it's too much. So a lot of it has served its purpose, and that's why we will be removing most of it.
Yeah, so we're just gonna take a paper towel and dab away. So as you can see, the skin is very dry now, and that's what's gonna really help crisp up that skin when it hits that oil. We're gonna want this pan cold to start. So just a bit of oil to coat the bottom of the pan. Since the skin is so dry, it's not really gonna render out fat that quickly since you're starting in a cold pan. And now we will take our chicken, and this is a pretty important part of the process where you want to make sure you leave enough room in the pan for full skin contact on both of them. So now that the chicken is in the pan cold, we're gonna turn that up to medium high, and once you start to hear that crackling after about 2 to 3 minutes, you can turn it down to medium for the rest of the time, which is about another 3 to 4 minutes until your skin is really golden and ready.
It's about like 7 minutes total of crisping the skin, and then we're gonna go into the oven and cook the rest of the chicken.
Yeah, at what temperature?
325.
Trust the process here. It's not gonna burn right away unless you really blast it on high.
This is also a beautiful cast iron pan. I love the blue stain.
Yeah.
Stunning. And you can find this cast iron pan at Food52. The chicken is sizzling, but we are going to remove some of these larger pieces of chicken, of veggies from the broth. And once we do that, we're gonna strain the broth to get all the kind of the finer little pieces of stuff so that what we're left with is a really pure broth.
You want to make sure to let all that excess water or stock drip off the chicken and the vegetables because that is liquid gold. Okay, so we got all of these veggies and things pulled out of the stock, and then we're going to use a fine mesh strainer to get the rest of it.
And there's that pure, beautiful broth.
Okay, I'm just going to peek at the chicken really quickly. It's definitely good to check the chicken throughout just to make sure there aren't any hot points or it's not burning anywhere. Oh, and it's getting nice and lightly golden.
So now what we have to do is move our now pure broth back into our pot because this is where we will poach the turnips. Before we put the turnips in, we just want to season it with a little bit of salt because we haven't seasoned the broth yet at all.
I'm going to get these turnips in, and Lydia is going to work on flipping this chicken.
And that crisp is going to be so nice with the juxtaposed with the soup and the turnips. Here we go, into the oven with the chicken. Oh, that chicken's loud.
So now the turnips are in here. You're going to want to poach them on a rather low temperature, a low simmer, because if they're boiling too much, it will cook the outside of the turnip really quickly and the inside will probably still be raw. Okay, so these turnips have been going for about 7 minutes now, and it's kind of hard to tell when they're ready because they're just about white. They don't get really translucent. So I'm just going to grab one and taste it.
Ooh, looks perfect.
It has a nice bite to it, but it's not super soft, and it has a ton of flavor from the chicken stock. So we're just going to remove these turnips now, preferably using a sieve, something that just allows you to remove them without having to strain the whole stock.
Probably time to check on our chicken.
You know, I've cooked this chicken many times now, and without fail, it's almost always ready between the 7 and 10 minute window. I know this is not what is recommended, but I generally cook my chicken a little bit below 165, around 150.
It looks good. Yeah, like Max said, your meat continues to cook when it rests. So that's why Max is saying if you shoot for a little under the 165 degrees, which is what's recommended, you're gonna be okay.
And one of the best ways to check chicken is with the electric thermometer, but you can also test it by just touching it and feeling how firm it is. And you can feel here, and especially in the tender area, that this chicken is definitely cooked.
Look at all those juices.
So you can reuse the same strainer from earlier and pour these precious juices right into the stock.
This is a prime example of a PJ.
And this pan sauce or drippings are going to be rather salty because of how much we salted the chicken. So it's important to not over salt the stock the first time around because this will definitely bring that saltiness up quite a bit.
This is a good moment to test our stock. Are we happy with it? Do we need to season it more?
I think I could use a little bit more salt, so we're just going to add a bit more.
So good. This is like, this I want on like tap in my fridge.
Oh.
I remember a friend of mine once said, she's like, sometimes you just need to go for a walk and drink some bone broth.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. Like sometimes that's really what you need to do.
Okay, so now this chicken has been resting for a few minutes, which is perfect. We're gonna slice it and then we'll get into plating.
And we just have a couple of lime slices that are great for serving. We also like to serve this dish with white rice, jasmine rice specifically.
Whenever I slice chicken like this, I, for some reason, always want to start with the thigh. I'm gonna work my way up from the thigh up to the breast here.
Our plating process is as follows. We go in with the rice. It is nice when the rice kind of serves as this little bolster for your chicken, which will be the last thing that we plate.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to have a good ratio of rice to broth. I'd say even like close to 50-50.
And then our beautiful green herb mixture, we're gonna put a couple dollops in the dish.
And then when we pour the broth over, it'll dilute that into the whole dish.
Right, and the reason we're not dumping all of this into the broth is because we don't want the heat of the broth to immediately brown the beautiful green. Like we want that vibrant green, and we want whoever we're serving this dish to, or if we're just serving it for ourselves, we want to enjoy that beautiful color.
Yeah, it is gorgeous.
So good. I feel like a little more. I don't want to drown the rice entirely because like I said, I like having it kind of hold up the chicken.
Yeah, that's perfect. You definitely want some, you don't want a bowl of soup really. You want it to be a little bit of broth and a little bit of rice.
And then the turnips.
Just gonna place this sliced chicken right on top, and depending on whether you like thigh or breast meat, it's really easy to choose whichever you'd like. And there you have it. And then a nice little squeeze of lime is perfect for a little burst of acid, and it kind of makes this dish just all come together.
This to me really is the definition of feel-good food. You have your protein, you have your broth, you have your veg, and this dish just like, it does make me feel good in a fundamental way.
It really warms the heart.
Yeah, it does, I love it. Okay, let's eat. This looks so good.
Are you a fork, spoon, or knife person for this meal?
Honestly, I think I'm fork, spoon, and knife because I want to slice my chicken and then I want to get a bite that includes the broth, a turnip, and rice. I'm greedy like that. I want it all in one bite.
And the chicken, I must say, is cooked perfectly.
I think you're right. You did a great job. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Feel Good Food.
You can find this recipe on Food52, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.